When you talk about protectionism, and if you want to compare similar economies, like Australian economy, within protectionism lens, what would happen in Australia? If you have to project that to happen and then to compare.
Well, I think it just lends itself to the case of certain industries will be favoured. The mining industry probably does not need any protectionism, and I don't think they'll call for tariffs or subsidies. But things that we always go to for subsidies is like manufacturing is a big one in Australia. We've never really been a manufacturing powerhouse except since the early 1900s, in which we manufactured quite a bit. But we just don't have a labour force big enough to create, or cheap enough to produce goods en masse. And so from a protectionist viewpoint, these industries would be the ones that would be subsidised and put tariffs on. But in doing so, there's no incentive for manufacturers in Australia to actually better their manufacturing process by making it cheaper or more efficient or more productive. There's no gains. It's just they're getting handouts from the government at the expense of taxpayers and consumers. At the end of the day, consumers will be the ones paying for more expensive goods because they don't have access to either cheap goods from foreign sources, or they're having to pay more expensive Australian goods.
And what's the good mix between, to protect some specific part of the industries rather than, not all of it, and to have consumer choice, and which also play an important role in the whole free market theories. So how do you have a good mix between free markets and some kind of protectionism so that it might be linked to your national interest or Australian interest longer term?
That's a tough question, because at the end of the day, it would come down to the political process or a government process in choosing which industries to pick. On a philosophical level, I'm not a huge fan of that, because it's government picking winners at the expense of everyone else, I guess. But I think we'd have to assess what are the national priorities. Is making cars in Australia a national priority? It might give us some sense of national self-esteem, but I don't think making cars in Australia, particularly when we've got the whole...
Or making submarines.
Submarines, that's a national security issue. There's probably more of an argument there, but if we're building nuclear submarines in Australia, we don't have the nuclear technology within Australia itself. We don't have the nuclear engineers. We don't have the system built up. So I'm very much a fan of the Ricardo comparative advantage principle. If some country can make it better and cheaper, they should specialise in that industry. That's not to say that we should completely bet everything on one industry. You need a robust, dynamic economy, and Australia's isn't very robust or dynamic. It's very, it's got a few big industries, and there's not much else.